Ethan Turner was desperate for work when he took the job as the new caretaker of Ashwood Cemetery. The pay was modest and the duties seemed straightforward. Maintain the grounds, keep the graves tidy, and ensure the gates were locked at night. The cemetery was old, its weathered tombstones and crumbling mausoleums testaments to generations long past. It sat on the outskirts of a small town, surrounded by dense woods that seemed to whisper secrets to those who ventured too close. On his first night, Ethan walked the cemetery grounds under a pale, waning moon. The air was cool, and the silence was thick, broken only by the rustling of leaves in the wind. He carried a lantern, its flickering light casting eerie shadows across the gravestones. As he made his rounds, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, though he saw no one. It wasn't long before Ethan began to notice strange occurrences. The temperature would suddenly drop in certain parts of the cemetery, and he would hear faint whispers, as if the wind carried the voices of the dead. One night, while clearing some overgrown brush near an old forgotten mausoleum, Ethan discovered something unsettling. The entrance to the mausoleum was slightly ajar, its iron door creaking as it swayed in the breeze. Curiosity getting the better of him, Ethan pushed the door open and stepped inside. The air was stale and cold, and the darkness seemed to press in around him. In the center of the mausoleum was a single ornate coffin, covered in dust and cobwebs. As Ethan approached, he noticed an inscription on the wall. "Here lies Margaret Blackwood, cursed be those who disturb her rest." A shiver ran down his spine, but he couldn't turn back now. When Ethan touched the coffin, a sudden gust of wind slammed the door shut, plunging the mausoleum into darkness. Panic surged through him as he fumbled for his lantern, but before he could light it, he heard a soft, mournful sobbing. The sound was coming from within the coffin. Terrified, Ethan stumbled back, his heart pounding in his chest. The coffin lid began to creak open, and a pale, ghostly figure emerged. It was a woman, her long hair matted and her eyes hollow and sunken. She floated just above the ground, her tattered dress fluttering as if caught in an unseen breeze. Her eyes locked onto Ethan, filled with sorrow and something darker. Rage. "Why have you disturbed my rest?" she whispered, her voice like the rustling of dead leaves. Ethan tried to speak, but no sound came out. The spirit moved closer, her presence cold and suffocating. "They lied. They buried me alive. They thought I would never be found, but you have awakened me." Ethan's mind raced. He had heard rumors about the Blackwood family, one of the town's oldest and wealthiest, but nothing about a woman being buried alive. The spirit's sorrow turned to fury as she revealed the truth. Margaret Blackwood had been falsely accused of witchcraft by her own family, who had feared her knowledge of herbs and medicine. They had buried her alive to silence her, but her soul could not rest. Now that Ethan had disturbed her grave, Margaret was free, and her vengeance would be swift. The spirits of the cemetery began to rise, their restless souls drawn to the awakening of the cursed one. Ethan fled the mausoleum, but the spirits followed, their wails echoing through the night. As the days passed, Ethan found himself haunted by visions of Margaret and the restless dead. The once peaceful cemetery became a place of horror as the spirits tormented him, showing him the suffering they endured in life. Every night he would hear Margaret's voice calling to him, demanding justice. Desperate to end the torment, Ethan began researching the Blackwood family, uncovering their dark history. He discovered that Margaret had been wronged, but her family's influence had buried the truth. Ethan knew what he had to do. He gathered what evidence he could and made his way to the town's authorities, revealing the injustice that had been buried for so long. The town was shocked by the revelation, and a proper investigation was launched. Margaret's remains were exhumed and given a proper burial, with a ritual to cleanse the cemetery of the curse. But for Ethan, the nightmare was far from over. Though the spirits no longer tormented him, Margaret's presence lingered. He would catch glimpses of her in the shadows, hear her voice in the wind, always whispering the same thing, "Thank you, but the curse is yours now." Ethan realized too late that by uncovering the truth he had taken on Margaret's curse. The spirits of the cemetery no longer sought vengeance, but they did seek company. And so, Ethan remained the caretaker of Ashwood Cemetery, bound to it by a curse that would ensure he never truly left. The job he had once taken out of desperation had become his eternal prison.